Hello, everybody, and welcome to Atheist Sunday School, your one-stop shop for everything Atheist Sunday and school. And boy, do we have a show for you today. Today we are covering Isaiah chapters 48 through 51. Getting to the end of Isaiah here.
Yeah, we are getting there. We have, I spent a good couple minutes just stacking commentaries. As you can see, there's a small mountain.
Yep.
Which is great. So we got lots of references, but before we
looks a bit unbearable.
It's gonna suck. Trying to follow along in all of these. Well, we'll see how that goes. But before we hop into the readings, today is the first of the month. I hope everyone had a happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, and this is our All Saints Day special.
And the thing that makes it special is that it is today.
Yeah, it's today.
Yeah. So, but you know what? Because it's a new month and it's the first Sunday of a month, we have a shirt to give away. And remember, if you would like to be entered into the t-shirt giveaway, you become a $10 patron or more. The link is in the description. And let's spin the wheel and give away a shirt.
Yes, so let's spin that wheel.
Yeah, there were, some... there are two now. Yeah, but
it's Landon.
There were more before. It's
Landon.
Gotta make a new shirt.
Make a new shirt, Landon.
We gotta make a new shirt. Unless he wants another copy of
another one.
Of another shirt.
No, this is the deal. We know we have to make a new shirt when it's Landon. That's how it is.
I guess
that's just the rules.
We'll make the Amalekite Lives Matter shirt.
We'll do something. We got a few ideas.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're covering 4 chapters of Isaiah today. We're Deliverance for Jerusalem. Anything you want to say about chapter 48 before we get into it? Besides, obviously, that I have the King James version of the Bible.
I have the English Standard version of the Bible. It's this one right over here.
We also have Eerdman's commentary on the Bible.
It's this back here. I don't think they can actually see it, but it's right over here, Eerdman's commentary. We have Robert Alter's translation and commentary of the Hebrew Bible. We also have the Holy Scriptures according to some Jews.
And the new King James version, as well as these.
Yes, we have the Hermenia translation and commentary on Deutero-Isaiah. And we have Westerman's commentary on Deutero-Isaiah. So we have quite a lot of books.
Yes, they're all in a pile.
Yeah, they are in a pile, aren't they?
Incredible. Well, then, why don't I hop into it unless you have something to say from any one of these books?
Well, the first thing that I want to point out is for this first chapter reading today from Westerman, there are more difficulties than usual here. And so far, editors have not succeeded in finding any convincing solution. So let's keep an eye out for those. He goes into a few, so we'll list some after verse 11.
Okay. Then let's hop into it.
Yeah.
Hear ye this, O house of Jacob, which are called by the name of Israel, and are come forth out of the waters of Judah, which swear by the name of the Lord, and make mention of the God of Israel, but not in truth, nor in righteousness. For they call themselves of the holy city, and stay themselves upon the God of Israel. The Lord of hosts is his name.
So, a couple of things here. So, initially, for the house of Jacob, who are called Israel, although it is a regular procedure in poetic parallelism to use Jacob, the primary term, in the first verset, and Israel, the name to which Jacob was changed, in the second verset, the wording here looks as if it may be a gloss on the two names. Formerly, Israel designated the northern kingdom, of course, and the southern one was Judah. But since that kingdom was destroyed, the name has been attached to the Judites as well, who now constitute the entire people. This adoption of the national name is further explained by the third verset, who came out from Judah's womb. And on the, it says here, the Lord of armies is his name. So there's a little bit of here's some interesting stuff, I think, from the Hermenia commentary, if I can, learn how to speak. that would be great. So on the level of the action, verses 1 through 2 are an announcement. The speaker comes forward like a herald. Yahweh Sabaoth is his name. This then is a new part scene. The translation that they have there is Yahweh Sabaoth.
Oh.
Yeah, that's another title for God.
Yes, yes, that is one of them. Eerdman says here that the Lord speaks to the descendants of Jacob and significantly Judah, perhaps a reference to the Jews, literally Judeans, the new name for the group who returned from the exile in Babylon. Josephus, Antiquities of the Jews 11-173, says that Jews was the name given to the people who had been in exile and not to those who had remained in the homeland. The text is obscure here. The NRSV says loins of Judah. It's literally waters of Judah in the Masoretic text. The Targum of Isaiah has seed of Judah. The second half of verse 1 together with verses 2 and 4 is very harsh in the style of Trito Isaiah.
Yeah, that's third Isaiah.
Yes. The people call him, okay, so we're going to get into that. We're going to get into all of it. Continue then. I have declared the former things from the beginning, and they went forth out of my mouth, and I showed them. I did them suddenly, and they came to pass.
Yeah,
this is like that call that he had earlier on and continuously through the book of Isaiah, where they're talking about the foreign gods and how like weak and useless they are because they can't divine the future. Now, here's presumably Yahweh saying, look at me, I can tell the future. I said what was going to happen, and then it happened.
Yeah, that would make sense. So the translation...
You guys are going to read the Bible more.
Yes.
There is it's a different translation from Alter. From my mouth they issued, I announced them. Of a sudden I did it, and they came about.
Well, I think the meaning is roughly the same.
Yeah, roughly.
Because I knew that thou art obstinate, and thy neck is an iron sinew, and thy brow brass. So, returning to the stiff-necked
Yeah,
idea.
the stiff-necked thing. Yeah, for I knew that you were hard. The essential element of God's knowledge is his recognition of Israel's stubborn recalcitrance. Yeah, stiff-necked.
Yes. I have even from the beginning declared it to thee. Before it came to pass, I showed it thee, lest thou shouldest say, mine idol hath done them, and my graven image and my molten image hath commanded them. Thou hast heard, see all this, and will not ye declare it? I have showed thee new things from this time, even hidden things, and thou didst not know them. They are created now, and not from the beginning, even before the day when thou heardest them not, lest thou shouldst say, Behold!
Behold!
Oh.
I
I knew them. So, still talking about these idols.
Yeah. And it's important to realize that here the names are no longer being said. They were said earlier.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Forget about those.
Yeah, no. Yea, thou heardest not. Yea, thou knewest not. Yea, from that time that thine ear was not opened, for I knew that thou wouldst deal very treacherously, and wast called a transgressor from the womb.
So is this a callback there to Judah's womb?
I think, yeah, this is talking about the Jews at this point, literally the Jews, and saying that, oh, they're stiff-necked, and look at all this stuff that I did, and you're not going to say that those idols did it, right?
So many commentators view verses 8 through 11, or part of them, as a later addition, and this is, of course, a possibility. The vocabulary has suggested to some commentators the influence of Trito-Isaiah, but it may also be pointed out that the style and argument hardly differs from that of the context. Verse 8b announces the verdict guilty. Verses 9 through 11 state what the consequences of this verdict really ought to be. And then I'm trying to find this womb reference. You can keep reading.
Okay. For my name's sake will I defer mine anger, and for my praise will I refrain for thee, that I cut thee not off. Behold!
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 I have refined thee, but not with silver. I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction. For mine own sake, even for mine own sake, will I do it. For how should my name be polluted? And I will not give my glory unto another. So, because of their dealing with these idols, they were punished with this affliction.
Yeah, I have purged you in the forge of affliction. You just finished verse 10, right?
I finished verse 11.
Okay. Well, I still have some commentary then.
Okay.
So this is the other component of God's plan for Israel. The people's treacherous behavior earns it punishment, which, if you've read the rest of the New Testament, or sorry, of the Old Testament, my bad. Yeah, and the punishment has a purging function, bringing the people to its senses about what it has done and leading it to change its ways, which is, we see that all throughout the book. That was pretty much the whole basis of the theology behind the exile. But continuing on, because I wanted to get back to the whole womb reference. If we assume that there's a connection here, then the reproach rogue from the womb can infer to the descendants of the adulterously ended marriage, the annulled relationship to God. And that was, what is he? He had a whole argument preceding it from, verses 6 through 7, changing of an address. Okay, so he's talking about you can kind of think of it like, do you remember that poem in Psalms?
That's real descriptive, Lauren.
No,
that one poem.
No,
in
the one that was the marriage poem between God and Israel.
Oh yeah, where some scholars interpret it as being between God and Israel.
Yeah, was that in Psalms? I think it was.
I think. Well, there was also the Song of Solomon, which was.
Yeah, that was something else.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're just making me think of the vague Psalms now.
Well,
the ones
either
that are like, tell them to go and do those things. Oh yeah, thank you.
Either way, in view of Deuteronomy,
Psalm 45, is it?
Maybe I don't remember.
Let me.
I'm going to be honest.
It.
Don't remember. There were quite a lot of Psalms, so forgive my my memory on that one. But to continue.
Well, Psalm 45 is the one that goes, my heart is inditing a good matter. I speak of the things which I have made touching of the king. My tongue is the pen of a ready writer. Thou art fairer than the children of men. Grace is poured into thy lips. Therefore God hath blessed thee forever. Gird thy sword upon thy thigh. Okay, it just keeps going on like that.
I remember like a specific marriage one. I think it was Psalms.
It's talking about all these smells, king's daughters being honorable women. I don't know. It might be
a different one. I honestly don't remember. In any case, in view of Deuteroisaiah's pleasure in complex levels of meaning, we cannot exclude the possibility that there is a reminiscence of Jacob's beginnings here. But it is noticeable that in the context of Jeremiah 3, the recreant Israel is told to repent, is assured that Yahweh's wrath will not last forever, that she should admit her guilt toward Yahweh, and that finally the faithless children will be brought to Zion. These are all elements in the Jeremiah text that can be compared with the approach taken by the present text in Deuteroisaiah. What is promised in Jeremiah is announced here as immediately impending.
All right. Hearken unto me, O Jacob and Israel, my called. I am he. I am the first. I also am the last. This is a saying that's popped up a couple of times in Isaiah.
Yeah, and it comes up way later too.
Yeah, this is something.
Alpha and Omega.
Yeah, the Alpha and Omega. That's a big Christian thing.
Mm.
And I don't really recall it being prior to Isaiah. And maybe it was once or twice.
It wasn't all around. I don't remember it being brought up at all, really.
But here in Isaiah, it's like I'm the first and the last, the beginning and the end.
I kind of remember it popping up at some point.
Well,
I felt like that was Apocrypha or maybe Jubilee.
The catchwords first and last are used in 41:4 for the first time. Common to the two texts is the assumption that the scene takes place in the underworld. In the first text, at least, the temporal components are linked with the spatial ones. In the underworld, the generations of the past are all simultaneously present, yet it is a separate space, a space separated from the upper world and from heaven. Sally, he doesn't have... he has some more on that, actually. So a little bit before getting into that, he notes that there are 5 divine declarations. 3 nominative sentences with I are followed by 2 verbal clauses. The declarations can also be divided into contrasting pairs. Then the first statement, I am the one, is followed by the antithesis, first and last. And then it goes into earth and heaven. Okay. The different declarations are artistically intertwined and also have different vowel sequences. Okay. So that's why he's referencing that.
Okay, there was about this purification.
And the second mention of the paired first last occurs in 44:6, where it is also a divine self-predication. There's an element in the dispute with other gods. The subject is the announcement of Cyrus.
The title First and Last was given to the heavenly Jesus in Revelation.
Yeah.
And is important for establishing who the first Christians believed Jesus to be. Revelation 1:17 and 22:13.
Right. Yeah.
But about this purge that happened a couple verses back, and the furnace. Right? It says here, 48:9-11 describe a great atonement. The Lord's anger is deferred so that the person addressed is not cut off. A state of ritual separation resulting from unatoned sin. See Leviticus 20:17. The one who bears his own sins is cut off. He has been tested in the furnace. See Malachi 3:2-3. A later text, but one which testifies to the belief that priests had to be purified in a baptism of fire. Deuteronomy 4:20, a text from the time of Deutero-Isaiah, applies the image of a furnace to the ancient cult, to the whole people.
Yeah, this is kind of this is the issue with Parker. I think kind of strays away from the point.
Yeah, it says Egypt and Babylon were both represented as experiences of fiery purification. Deuteronomy apparently addresses those who have just left Egypt, but in fact it was written for those leaving Babylon. Great.
All right. Let's continue. This section is actually kind of interesting.
Let's continue then. Mine hand also hath laid the foundation of the earth, and my right hand hath spanned the heavens. When I call unto them, they stand up together.
Right.
Look, I can make my hands move.
No, I think it's saying something else.
Yeah.
So that was verse 13.
That was verse 13. Yeah.
Okay. I'll find something on verse 13. Hold on. Hold on. There's apparently some difficulty about verse 13.
Oh.
Yeah. And the transition to verse 14, because it's not quite clear who was being addressed in each case. Is it Jacob and Israel, the nations, or their gods? As the textual criticism shows, the use of the suffixes is also uncertain. Various emendations have been proposed. Read verse 14.
All ye assemble yourselves and hear. Which among them hath declared these things? The Lord hath loved him. He will do as he will do his pleasure on Babylon, and his arm shall be on the Chaldeans.
Okay, so I think I know what verse 13 was getting at. So my hand founded the earth, and my right hand spread out the heavens. I summoned them; they stand together. That meaning the earth and the heavens.
So he's not
talking about his hands. He's not talking about clapping.
No, no, nothing like that.
No?
Amazing.
No. Yep.
Just the clapping. I got you some clapping.
That's
Thank you.
God.
Yeah. Either way. But back to the difficulty there. Apparently, this is from Hermenia. In my view, we have to start from the stage directions contained in the text. When I summon them, they stand there together, and then assemble all of you. And then later on, actually in verse 16, draw near to me. This is a clear sequence. So, I mean, we can kind of get where he's going with that.
Yeah.
But in content, the scene is more important than is immediately perceptible. We may ask why so solemn a form of address is required simply in order that the smallest unit should end. When I summon them, they stand together. But it becomes comprehensible if we take the context and situation into account. Stand presupposes getting up. Here, it also means the getting up of those who are resting in the world below. Jacob and Israel are only together, and he's referencing verses 12 and 13 there, and all in verse 14, if past generations are included. Now something really new begins. We can go back to verse 6, which all are to witness. With these presuppositions, the text can be compared with the raising of dead Israel in the valley of dry bones in Ezekiel. And yeah, the dry bones stuff that comes up a couple times actually, like in Kings too.
Yeah.
I think it was in Kings.
I think we'll.
No, there was other parts where they talk about dry bones.
When we cover Ezekiel.
Yeah, we'll get there at some point.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Even I have spoken. Yea, I have called him. I have brought him, and he shall make his way prosperous. Come ye near unto me, hear ye this.
Yeah, so as often in biblical Hebrew, the multi-purpose verb call has the sense of summon, or single out for a mission. Sure, makes sense. Yeah.
I have not spoken in secret from the beginning, from the time that it was, there am I. And now the Lord God and his Spirit hath sent me.
So, for verse 14, actually, the Lord loves him. The pronominal object of the verb here is Cyrus. It may seem extravagant to say that the Lord loves a foreign emperor, but the sense in context is that God, using Cyrus as the instrument in a divine historical plan, has chosen to give full support to Cyrus's imperial ambitions and to enable him to subdue Babylonia. Which, fair enough. I mean, if you go back and read Ezra, I think, that's the one where they basically just put words in Cyrus's mouth.
Right.
And he's all like, I did this for this God of Israel, and the God of Israel gave me this ability. Like, I highly doubt that Cyrus said that.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah, but it's clear that they liked Cyrus, which makes sense.
Yep. Thus saith the Lord, thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. I am the Lord, thy God, which teacheth thee to profit, which leadeth thee by the way that thou shouldst go. Oh, that thou hadst hearkened to my commandments. Then had thy peace been as a river, and thy righteousness as the waves of the sea.
So the point for Israel is, I, Yahweh, am your God, and he is this in that he teaches her to profit. The terms are too general for any certain interpretation, but the meaning probably is that in this fresh act, Israel is experiencing an entirely new way in which God can help her. It is only the final words of the utterance, I am your God, who makes for you the way in which you should go, that reveal its objective.
Thy seed also had been as the sand, and the offspring of thy bowels like the gravel thereof. His name should not have been cut off nor destroyed from before me. Go ye forth of Babylon, flee ye from the Chaldeans. With a voice of singing declare ye, tell this, utter it even to the end of the earth. Say ye, the Lord hath redeemed his servant Jacob.
Yeah, so there's some interesting stuff coming when we're talking about all these places, the people of these places. Quite a lot of stuff. So on verses 14 through 15, or sorry, specifically 14 here, the verse is considered difficult, but the difficulty disappears once we assume that Deutero-Isaiah, serious though his purpose is, works with surprise effects, and in this case, with an almost macabre wit. If we note the directions given to the speakers, the instructions listen, and the question who has declared. In verse 14a are still part of the divine speech. The same is true of the beginning of verse 15. I have spoken. What does not fit in the second half of verse 14? Yahweh loved him. The text has been unequivocally transmitted, but three interventions have been proposed, these generally being based on the interpretation of the Septuagint and an Isaiah scroll found at Qumran. To expunge the name of Yahweh, but this does not eliminate the difficulty of the change of the speaker. 2, to change the suffixes and punctuation from he loved him to my beloved, my friend, and from his will to my will. A third possibility, to change his arm completely to seed of the Chaldeans. But the difficulty about the change of speaker was felt in the original Deutero-Isaiah text too. Consequently, we have here one of the very rare stage directions similar to the one we already noted in 47:3. There it was a human being who was supposed to speak the sentence that follows in 47:4. Here the direction Chaldeans is put at the end, or perhaps strayed there in the course of the copying. As the verdict of the Chaldeans, the sentence is quite comprehensible as it stands. Yeah, and the Chaldeans are the people of Babylon, but the name is already used in the Old Testament as a designation for sages and astrologers. In this act, they have already appeared as the attendants of Babylon, the daughter of the Chaldeans.
All right. And they thirsted not when he led them on through the deserts. He caused the waters to flow out of the rock for them. He clave the rock also, and the waters gushed out. There is no peace, saith the Lord, unto the wicked.
Yeah, and of course there that being a nice little reference to good old Moses, right?
Yeah, there's a reference to Moses, and there ain't no rest for the wicked.
Which, is the much more important reference.
Yeah.
That song?
Yep, that song, the Bible stole it from that song.
I mean, obviously, the timeline just works there.
Yep. All historians agree.
Absolutely.
Anyways, that's the end of chapter 48. If you're enjoying the stream so far, give us a like. I see.
Here is actually something I want to note. So, dramatically, this is a tremendously dense composition. Past, present, and future are seen as one and are yet differentiated. There can be no doubt that a great deal of discussion about the Exodus must lie behind verse 20. What is in question is also the context of the Passover pericope, which is freshly actualized every year at the Passover feast. Are the people to leave in haste, or is there no hurry about the new Exodus? The decision here is flee. Is the Exodus to take place in secret or not? The answer is it is to be public, with a voice of joy to the end of the earth. it is impossible to miss the fact that here again Isaiah is applying to his own time a prophecy about the book of Jeremiah. The beginning of verse 20 sounds like a quotation from Jeremiah 58. Flee from the midst of Babylon and go out of the land of the Chaldeans. Isaiah changes the quotation slightly. In Jeremiah 58, the people have to flee from the city because it is going to be destroyed. It is clearly the country that is meant, not the people, the Chaldeans. But perhaps Isaiah is again thinking of the Chaldeans as soothsayers who ought to be shunned or fled from. But the whole quotation may possibly point to the wider context in the book of Jeremiah, with its account of Babylon's downfall, the lament of the people of Israel and the people of Judah, and finally, the deliverance.
So, yeah, as I was saying, if you are enjoying the stream so far, give us a like, share, comment, subscribe, etc.
Because it really does help, honestly. And you know what? If you are thinking, I haven't gotten any of these notifications for the streams, you can click the bell. I think
The terrifying bell.
Yeah, I know. I think that is that only on phones, or is it on browsers too? I don't know.
I think it's on browsers too.
Okay. Well, either way, yeah. Click the bell.
Yes.
Like we said, we know it's scary.
So, this chapter that we're about to read.
Here's this last one.
Okay. Isaiah 49, 1 through 6
Yes.
are often designated as the second servant song. But the servant theme extends through to verse 12.
Yeah, and then trust me, the servant theme will continue to go on through chapters like 55 or 56, maybe all the way to the end. But the servant theme, we've been over one of them already, and it's gonna get continued hardcore. In fact, I'm gonna be bringing in a good amount of stuff for next week for the servant song.
Excellent. Well, First Enoch 48 is very similar to this servant song.
Shout out to Enoch.
But since First Enoch 48, 5 through 6 parallels Isaiah 49, 7, verses 8 through 13 must also refer to the servant. The servant himself is the speaker, addressing the coastlands and peoples. Coastlands probably means a hostile supernatural being, as in Isaiah 41,
yeah, we've been over that one before. Yeah, I remember that.
The servant was chosen before his birth and kept hidden, a characteristic of the later Messiah, the hidden teacher who will be revealed. See also Isaiah 54, First Enoch 48, 6.
Which verse does it talk about the what'd you say, the islands, or what was it? The coastlands?
The coastlands.
Yeah, does it say what verse that was?
It doesn't.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we'll see it.
It's just talking about the first 6 verses.
Yeah.
In general. So the Lord speaks directly to the servant. Israel is given as a name of the servant. It could be an addition, though.
Yeah.
Since verses 5, 6, and 7 use Israel to designate the people, not an individual. It could be a throne name, meaning ruler, or the man who sees God.
Yeah, that's why these servant songs are so hard to understand sometimes, because it's not really sure who's supposed to be talking or what they're talking about. And yeah, there could be glosses that change, who's the speaker.
Yeah.
And yeah, the tenses. It's
So there's
all
gonna
that
be a
grammatical
lot of
stuff. Yeah. So I'm going to hand this one off to you as well.
Okay.
Here you go. Here's a bookmark for you. So let's hop into this next chapter then, chapter 49, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Oh, yeah, it's the first thing there. Listen to me, O coastlands. I don't know, maybe there's a different translation in some other
Hear
words.
me, O coastlands. Listen, O isles.
Okay. So basically the same stuff.
Listen to me, you coastlands.
And give attention, you peoples from afar. The Lord called me from the womb. From the body of my mother, he named my name. So this is sounding very much like an Israel sort of thing.
Well, the speaker is the servant.
Sure.
And he's addressing the Gentiles.
Yes, and it seems like it's Israel right now, because from before, or sorry, the Jews, I should say.
The Jews.
Yeah, because if we were talking about, remember the womb stuff from the last chapter?
Yeah.
Yeah, so taking that into account, we can understand that better. So it would just be the Jews talking to all the people who aren't Jews, all the Gentiles, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, it says, by turning to the foreign nations, the servant asserts his Lord's claim that his sovereignty reaches to the ends of the earth.
Yeah.
Eum is the term for Mediterranean islands and coastlands. It means the Greek-speaking world, particularly. The content of the following text will make clear why the islands and the nations are supposed to listen with keen attention to the message of the new changed role of Israel and the servant. If, as W. Shotroff maintains in his reference to this passage, the command does not indicate the beginning of a Judaical assembly, but is the formula introducing a didactic discourse, this would stress the peaceful character of the scene.
All right, well, let's find out why we should listen to the servant.
Yes, let's find out.
He made my mouth like a sharp sword. In the shadow of his hand, he hid me. He made me a polished arrow. In his quiver, he hid me away. So he's like a secret weapon, basically?
Right. Is
that what I'm getting?
Alter notes that the assertion in this line and the next that the prophet's discourse is a potent weapon may be a little surprising because the chief burden of his prophecies is a message of consolation. Perhaps speaking in a situation of painful political powerlessness.
Oh, see, this is how you destroy evil. With the strong, clever, and what do you say, sharp words.
Yeah, he says he wants to assert that his poetry has power, even the power to devastate those who would resist it. One should note that there is a counterpoint between the first and second verset in each of these two lines. The first verset expresses the weapon-like power of the prophet's discourse. The second, his enjoyment of shelter provided by God, with the image of the quiver neatly combining shelter and weapon.
Yeah. And he said to me, "You are my servant, Israel, in whom I will be glorified." But I said, "I have labored in vain. I have spent my strength for nothing and vanity. Yet surely my right is with the Lord, and my recompense with my God." So, taking at least partially taking a page out of Kohelet's playbook, right? Whole vanity thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So yeah, it's Israel. Been through a lot. Yeah. We get it. We've read your book.
yes.
Continuing on here to verse 5. And now the Lord says, "He who formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob back to him, and that Israel might be gathered to him. For I am honored in the eyes of the Lord, and my Lord has become my strength." So this is kind of, the same. This is kind of working off the thing from before, right? Because he had just spent his strength, but now the Lord is becoming his strength.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's working off of that.
Oh my gosh, he has inverse bonuses. That's awesome.
It's amazing.
Dude, must scale so well.
He says, and this is what God is saying.
So, what verse are you on right now?
I just finished verse 5. I was about to start verse 6.
So verses 5 through 6, 7, and 8 through 13 are three oracles to the servant. He has to bring Israel/Jacob back to the Lord, another example of temple imagery fulfilled in history, Atonement enabled sinners to be brought back to the covenant people. See Ezekiel 16:59 through 63 and 20:33 through 37, which describe the Lord reestablishing the everlasting covenant, which he atones or forgives, becomes king, and brings them into the bond of the covenant again. The servant is said to be a light to the nations.
I mean, that would make sense.
Yeah.
He says, "It is too light a thing that you should be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob, and to bring back the preserved of Israel." So the survivors of the exile, I'm guessing?
Mm-hmm.
"I will make you as a light for the nations, that my salvation may reach to the end of the earth."
It's the unheard of act of bringing the exiled people of Israel back to its land is imagined as taking place in a cosmic arena.
So I
This
think
spectacular intervention on behalf of the defeated people will be seen throughout the earth.
so. One of the things that I find interesting is I will make you as a light for the nations. So, someone to be looked upon, someone you should look up to, right? I think that's the meaning behind that. But furthermore, this is to the nations. And if you remember the nations stuff, I don't know the
Right,
Hebrew.
the nations are like the enemy nations, the
exactly.
non-Israelites.
Yeah, so usually the nations just means the enemies, but I don't know the Hebrew there. Maybe it's different and they literally just mean every nation.
So the climax and conclusion of the servant's address to the foreign peoples is the information that he himself is to be a light of nations. Laor Goyim? Yeah, I
If you
guess.
say so.
Yeah, Laor Goyim.
Oh, okay.
So they're literally the Goyim.
Okay, of course.
The nations.
Non-Jews.
Right. Both light and help. That help that is for Israel can mean disaster for the nations in the framework of the Holy War.
Gotcha.
But here, the two things are closely associated with the person of the servant. Light, is the quintessence of justice and righteousness, and means deliverance, help, salvation. Yeshua.
Yeshua.
Yep. For the nations
That would have
too.
been Jesus or Joshua. And, yeah.
Yes. 51:4-6 will make even clearer how this is connected with precepts and law and justice. It is indeed nothing other than the Torah that has been given to Moses on Sinai, but that is now valid for the whole world. This is the greater message. It's a message for the future.
Gotcha. All right. "Thus says the Lord, the Redeemer of Israel and his Holy One, to the one deeply despised, abhorred by the nation." That one's singular, the nation.
Yes.
Abhorred by the nation, the servant of rulers. And this is what God is saying, I think. Yeah. Thus says the Lord. "Kings shall see and arise, princes, and they shall prostrate themselves because of the Lord who is faithful, the Holy One of Israel, who has chosen you." So yeah, that's verse 7.
So 49:7 presents the recurring servant theme. Even though he's despised, the rulers of the world will recognize him. The slave of rulers should probably be servant Meshulam. That doesn't really tell me much. Let's check this one. With the ancient introductory formula, this says Yahweh. 48:17 is followed by two other prophecies. Here, too, the triple number has its special significance. The last element requires special weight. The first oracle in 7 echoes motifs belonging to the lament.
Oh yeah, because verse 17 starts out with the same thing. "Thus says the Lord, your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel."
The second, in verses 8-12 and 13, is aimed at rejoicing and thanksgiving. The text offers some difficulties, especially in verse 7. Among other things, it raises the question, who's being addressed? In the text, as we have it, the active form is used twice because of contempt, because of the one who abhors. Textual critics generally change these forms into the passive, the one despised, the one abhorred. To whom does the sequence from someone to princes refer? What do kings and princes see? It could be that the difficulties are not due to the transmission of the text at all and cannot therefore be eliminated by the methods of literary criticism. They may be connected with a characteristic that we have already observed several times in Deutero-Isaiah, his tendency to play on different levels of meaning. It is on this assumption that we shall attempt to clarify the difficulties of the text. On the first, immediately accessible level, it is the servant who is being referred to. He is addressed in the masculine singular form, clearly so at the end of verse 7, and then immediately afterwards 4 times in verse 8, Yahweh is certainly presented in the introductory formula as Israel's Redeemer and its Holy One, but it is the one who chooses that he is Israel's Holy One. Okay, from verse 8 on, it's clear that the servant has tasks to perform. If we see the servant as the subject of the text, the change to the passive in verse 7 certainly has a point, and this is the rendering of the ancient translations in most commentators. The servant is despised and abhorred and by everyone. That he of all people should be chosen by Yahweh is a reason for the mighty to be astonished. It signifies a fundamental reversal. In the sense, the passage already points toward the final servant of God text, particularly to Isaiah 52:15. On a second level, the text can be interpreted as referring to Moses as the servant, even if the indications are less clear than they otherwise are from 48:16 onward. The speaker remains the same in verse 7. It's still Moses speaking as a prophet. He suffered under human hostility and later tradition, drawing on Deuteronomy 34, believed that he also predicted his own death. But is this tradition sufficient to explain the despised and abhorred comment?
Well, I don't think it would be, but here is you can look for whatever you need to look for, but I do have a little bit of commentary that might elucidate some stuff.
Okay.
So this is from Westerman's. So he speaks to an oppressed servant of rulers and despised nation. As often in the attributes he applies to Yahweh, Deutero-Isaiah takes up the lamentation made in the exile by his fellow countrymen. Once again, the background here is expressly words in the book of Lamentations, which call God's attention to the fact that Israel has been made to do service, that she is despised, that she has become filthy, and that she has been brought into disgrace. We have already seen that in the case of the other proclamations of salvation, only one motif of the community lament is struck up at the beginning. Here, this is the disgrace of suffering. As we have seen from the Psalms, in ancient Israel, suffering and shame went together beyond possibility of separation in a way which we today fail to understand. Yet this is what we must realize if we are to appreciate the radical nature of the change involved in giving a positive evaluation to the servant's suffering. This servant, to whose suffering too, as chapter 53 says emphatically, is attached to disgrace. And of course, I think I want to at some point do a video on the suffering servant, and in that video I would cover the servant songs in general. I think that's something I would be interested in. Let me know if that's something you're interested in. I got some stuff on. We got a good amount of commentaries on Isaiah.
Yeah. Well, with these next few verses, we're gonna see some parallels with Nehemiah. But since we haven't read Nehemiah,
yeah, we have.
Have we?
Ezra and Nehemiah.
Oh, yeah. Ezra and Nehemiah.
Yeah.
I was thinking something else later on.
Were you thinking Nahum?
Probably.
Okay.
But, in 8 through 12, we're going to be talking a little bit about this. So why don't you read 8 through 12?
Will do. Let's do this.
Yes.
Thus says the Lord, in a time of favor I have answered you. In a day of salvation I have helped you. I will keep you and give you as a covenant to the people. to establish the land, to apportion the desolate heritages, saying to the prisoners, "Come out!" To those who are in darkness, "Appear!" They shall feed along the ways. On all bare heights shall be their pasture. They shall not hunger or thirst, neither scorching wind nor sun shall strike them. For he who has pity on them will lead them, and by springs of water will guide them. And I will make all my mountains a road, and my highways shall be raised up. Behold!
Behold!
These shall come from afar, and behold!
Behold!
These from the north and from the west, and these from the land of Syene. And there is
Yeah, so there's
some textual notes. Yeah.
There's extensive stuff on Syene, which we'll get to in a moment. First, I want to address some of this Nehemiah stuff.
Okay.
All right. So if we read this, the tenses in verse 8 in Hebrew futures, I will inform you and I will give you, makes sense if Moses is announcing a far-off future. Moses concluded the covenant for the people, and this will remain valid in the future too. If we read this against the background of the book of Nehemiah as we have it, Nehemiah 8 through 10 provides an astonishing illustration. Chapter 10 is clearly talking about a renewed obligation assumed by the whole people to walk in God's law, which was given to Moses. In the existing text, Nehemiah's role is disputed. As governor, he is the first to sign the document. But at the reading of the law in chapter 8, Ezra, the priest and the scribe, plays a decisive role. As a result, the whole complex in the book of Nehemiah has been viewed as secondary, and the event has been associated with Ezra. But in Deuteronomy, there's never any explicit mention of priests at all. The temple is mentioned only indirectly in Cyrus's edict, and the criticism of sacrifice is unambiguous. This could also suggest that this passage, too, in Deuteronomy is not without a topical polemic. The hearing and the help come about with the help of Yahweh's servant, not through Ezra the priest. We could therefore reverse the whole argument and say the link between the measures taken in Nehemiah 8 through 10 and Ezra is secondary and express a different position. One of the measures to be carried out according to verses 8 through 9 is the new distribution of the devastated possessions and the liberation of prisoners. On the one hand, if we look closely at the phraseology, it does not fit Moses. Where are the inherited lands devastated? Nor are the exiles in Babylon in chains. On the other hand, if we compare Nehemiah's reforms in Nehemiah 5:1 through 13, and especially the freeing of people enslaved for debt, the statements fit one another very well. Finally, we may assume that when the close of this whole section runs, yes, Yahweh has comforted his people, there is a direct play here on the name Nehemiah. It says, Ki Nicham Yahweh Amo, against Nehemiah. The verse also forms a link both with the beginning of 41 and with what follows. Even though it's impossible to arrive at complete certainty, the parallels between Deuteronomy and Nehemiah are so striking that they should be taken into account as interpreting the text and its dating. One detail in the text, as we have it, then deserves special attention from a historical point of view. Among the people who have returned from exile, 49:12 mentions those from the land of Sinim. G. Lambert's exhaustive study has led to general agreement that this is the name for Syene, the name still found in its modern equivalent, Aswan.
Aswan. Okay, so
Yes.
Egypt.
Yes, so there's quite a bit here. Better known in the ancient world was the islands in the Nile, whose Greek name is Elephantine, and which lies opposite Aswan on the first cataract at the southern frontier of the Egyptian kingdom. The island was called Elephantine because of the ivory trade that passed through it. The earlier Egyptian name Yeb already derives from the word for elephant. In the Persian period from 525 BCE, a military garrison there included a unit of Jewish mercenaries. Aramaic papyri found on the island have shed some light on the history of this remote place. The Jews had their own temple there.
Yeah.
In 411 BCE, this was destroyed by the priests of the Egyptian god Knum. In letters of 410 and 407, the Jews in Elephantine appealed to the Persian governor of Judah, Bagoas, begging for his support for the rebuilding of their temple. Bagoas's ascent led to tension between Samaria and Jerusalem, and also in Jerusalem itself, the question being whether the temple cult was permissible outside of the land itself. Against this background, the mention of these from the land of Sinim would acquire an additional sting, for it would mean acknowledgement of Jerusalem's unique status.
You know, something that I find particularly interesting, in Westerman's commentary, he changes up some of the verses to what he thinks would be an original, just the order of them. So we had some confusion over verse 7 earlier, right?
Yes.
So he split that up into two halves. So the first half would be, before anything is said, and then the second half is the stuff that's actually being said. And he puts 7b actually right after this verse that we just finished. So, lo, these come from afar, and lo, these from the north and south. Lo, these from the north and south, although other translation says west, and these from the land of Seonim. And then it continues. This is where verse 7b comes in, according to, from Westerman's opinion. Kings see it and arise, princes, and they prostrate themselves because of Yahweh who is faithful. Yeah, the rest of that. So he changes up the order there to what he thinks would be an original. Yeah, so that's
all right. I think we can carry on.
Yeah, let's continue here. There's that for you. And this next one has its own little thing in Westerman's. It's just that. I don't know how it is in Hermenia. Either way.
Yeah, it's a hymn of praise.
A really short one.
Yep.
Sing for joy, O heavens, and exult, O earth. Break forth, O mountains, into singing, for the Lord has comforted his people and will have compassion on his afflicted. That's very psalmy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mountains, inanimate things singing. That's it's been around there before. I don't really think we need much of a commentary on that one. Just go read some Psalms. I'm sure you'll find some stuff that's very similar to this.
Right. Now about this upcoming section, 49:14 through 26 is the complaint, not compliant, of an abandoned wife who is assured that she will become a great mother again. So this wife is not a literal woman. They're going to be referring to Zion as a female.
Right. As is tradition.
Very commonplace in biblical poetry and poetry in general.
Yeah. But Zion said, "The Lord has forsaken me. My Lord has forgotten me. Can a woman forget her nursing child, that she should have no compassion on the son of her womb? Even these may forget, yet I will not forget. Behold!
Behold!
Behold.
I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. Your walls are continually before me." So can't really escape.
Yes. So when she says the
Not like in a
Lord-
bad way of escaping, but like always there.
Yeah,
You can't
so
escape
when
in a bad way.
when Zion says the Lord has forsaken me, the verb for forsaken is one that would be used for a wife abandoned by her husband. Right? The metaphor of God as a husband and Israel as a wife is articulated in Jeremiah 1. The poet here taps into the convention. Does a woman forget her child? So God assures Zion, who feels she's been rejected by him, that his feelings for her are even stronger than those of a mother for her child. The elaboration of the simile leaves it ambiguous as to whether Zion is God's daughter or his bride. At the same time,
Bride, daughter.
the invocation of a mother's attachment to her baby lays the grounds for the vision of restored children in 17 through 21.
All right, let's continue here.
What verse are you on now?
I just finished verse 16.
Okay, tell me when you get to the end of 18.
Okay. Your builders make haste. Your destroyers and those who laid you waste go out from you. Lift up your eyes around and see. They all gather. They all come to you. As I live, declares the Lord, you shall put them all on as an ornament. You shall bind them on as a bride does. So, that could be interpreted in multiple ways, I think.
All as I live, says the Lord, all of them like a jewel you shall wear, and tie them on like a bride. This somewhat unusual image of children worn like a jewel may be motivated by a literary allusion. Benjamin Sommer has proposed that 2nd Isaiah explicitly has in mind Jeremiah 2:32.
I don't even know if this is necessarily children, like reading the context.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're talking about your destroyers and those who laid you waste go out from you.
Those who ravaged
and then
you,
when they
destroyed you, shall leave you. Lift up your eyes and see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They all have gathered, have come to you.
Yeah. So I don't think
Right,
we're talking
it
about
says,
children here.
Your children hasten. Those who ravaged you, destroyed you, shall leave you. Lift up your eyes and see. They've all gathered, have come to you. So it's like your children are coming. Those who have harmed you are leaving. Now your children are here.
I see. Okay.
But it says Jeremiah 2:32. Does a virgin forget her jewels, a bride her knotted sash? In our text, the forgetting is transferred from jewels to children, and jewel, the same Hebrew word, adi, becomes a metaphorical representation of the children.
I have a cousin named Adi.
Wow. Since producing children was imagined in this culture as a woman's greatest fulfillment, it logically follows that they are her chief ornament, what she can has in glory before the eyes of the world.
Yeah, I see. Kind of the whole reputation thing.
Yes.
Living on through your children.
Yes.
Surely your waste and your desolate places and your devastated land surely now will be too narrow for your inhabitants, and those who swallowed you up will be far away. The children of your bereavement, will yet say in your ears, the place is too narrow for me. Make room for me to dwell in. Then you will say in your heart, who has borne me these? I was bereaved and barren, exiled and put away. But who has brought up these? Behold!
Behold.
I was left alone. From where have these come?
What verse are you on?
I just finished verse 21. That section was verses 19 through 21.
Okay, yeah. Well, we got to talk about that.
Okay.
So, verse 21, who gave birth for me to these? And verse 20, the children of whom you were bereaved. So this is a poetic paradox. As in a fairy tale happy ending, the children who Zion had thought were lost forever now appear before her and announce that because there are so many of them, there's scarcely room for them to dwell in the land.
Of course.
Who gave birth for me to these? These, the poignant force of 2nd Isaiah's poetry of consolation is beautifully felt here. Thanks, Alter. Zion had thought herself bereaved of all her children and hopelessly barren, never to replace them. Now she finds them swarming around her, and she expresses her amazement in a simple, almost naive exclamation.
I mean, you know what? They were amazed too.
Yeah. Did some mysterious surrogate mother give birth to all of these for me? These, from where have they come? The last sentence is still more pared down in the Hebrew. These, where are they? One should note that the Hebrew verb for gave birth is against biology masculine. Either the final feminine heh was dropped in scribal transmission, Or this is an instance in which the masculine singular verb serves as a passive. By whom were these given birth? So, some interesting stuff there. Very interesting.
So we'll continue on to verse 22.
Yep.
Thus says the Lord God, Behold!
Behold.
I will lift up my hands to the nations.
So in Isaiah 5:26, God raises a banner to marshal the armies from the ends of the earth that will attack Judah.
Yes.
This is a reversal. The military signal inaugurates the return from exile, which is wholly pacifist, with the sons and daughters of Zion carried in the laps and shoulders of the rulers of nations.
And raise my signal to the peoples, and they shall bring your sons in their arms. Oh, okay. And your daughters shall be carried on their shoulders. Kings shall be your foster fathers, and their queens your nursing mothers. That's not how biology works.
No.
With their faces to the ground, they shall bow down to you, and lick the dust of your feet. Then you will know that I am the Lord. Those who wait for me shall not be put to shame. And of course, we talked about it earlier. They were feeling like they were put to shame.
Yeah. So obviously now here they're being glorified once they've returned from their exile.
Yeah, yeah. And they shall bring your sons in their arms, and your daughters shall be carried on their shoulders. So yeah, they're all coming back, I guess.
Yep. They're all returning peacefully. Whereas normally, in other situations, they wouldn't be carrying children on their shoulders. They'd be carrying spears.
Of course. Can the prey be taken from the mighty, or the captives of a tyrant be rescued?
For tyrant.
Yes, the answer is yes.
For tyrant, the Masoretic text reads Sadiq, righteous man, or according to some, victor. But the Qumran Isaiah, as well as two ancient versions, have Aretz, tyrant. And this reading is supported by the fact that the terms warrior and tyrant recur in the next line of poetry as a pointed repetition.
Yeah, and although I guess, see, the first half of that, can the prey be taken from the mighty? If we're kind of supposed to parallel that to the tyrant, I kind of see how it could have been either one. But I totally see the righteous man thing. What does Alter say about it? Does he say anything about the verse?
Yeah, that's what Alter said.
Oh, that was what Alter said? Okay.
I'm looking for anything else about it.
Okay. Well, either way.
24 through 26 is section 3. As before, the question which introduces the section clearly indicates the reproach which the disputation is to combat. In verses 14 through 20, this was a charge brought against God. In 21, it was a lament in the first person. Here, the lament is because of enemies. They are the source of the trial. We have become the prey of a mighty one. It was inevitable for the exiled Israelites to think of it in this way, so there was nothing that could be done about it. All hope was gone. This has been the fate of countless other men and nations in the ancient world. Now it's our turn. We must put up with it like all the rest, so stricken. To this, God makes an answer. The introduction to it is in verse 25a, and should not be transferred to come before in verse 24, as suggested by the apparatus criticus in BH.
I'm not sure what that is, but
yeah. The answer is that this very thing that seems impossible comes about all the same. The mighty one is, in fact, to have his prey torn from him.
Okay, gotcha. For thus says the Lord, even the captives of the mighty shall be taken, and the prey of the tyrant be rescued. For I will contend with those who contend with you, and I will save your children. I will make your oppressors eat their own flesh, and they shall be drunk with their own blood as with wine. Then all flesh shall know that I am the Lord your Savior and your Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob.
So in the immediately preceding prophecy, the kings and princes of nations were reduced to nursemaids and attendants.
Sounds a lot like, that section just sounds a lot like Deuteronomy 28.
Yep. Here, in an angrier turn of vengeful thinking, they are condemned to hideous starvation,
I'd say,
leading to cannibalism. All flesh shall know. In a move characteristic of both biblical poetry and biblical narrative prose, a word has just been used in one sense. Flesh as what constitutes together with blood in the human body. It's repeated in a different sense. All flesh is designation of all humankind. Also, but here in 26, Israel is not alone in having conferred onto her the coming event a knowledge which she is to take with her into the future history. Such knowledge, the response to the event is to go forth far out into the world. All flesh is to know who is at work here. As in verse 23c, the thing to be known is summed up in the 3 words, I am Yahweh. The subject of the knowledge is God's divinity. So, here we go. Yahweh's act in redeeming Israel speaks a language that attracts attention amongst the Gentiles as well. Probably because it would be very uncommon within ancient desert tribes to be able to reestablish themselves after an exile.
Yeah, definitely difficult, which is why, they kind of relied on Cyrus there. Either way, that is the end of, that's the end of chapter 49. We hope you guys are enjoying the stream so far. Make sure to drop a like, subscribe.
Something?
I do hear something. This is a strange voice. It has never happened before. Never been here. We don't know what this is.
It's a mystery to me.
It is a mystery to me.
One of those saints.
Behold, I am your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and I want to let all you heathens and sinners know that I support this wonderful episode of Atheist Sunday School. Lawrence and Reuben try their very best to bring you the true glory of the Bible, and they need your help. They have provided links to their Patreon page and other social media just for you. Once again, my name is Jesus Christ, and this is Milwaukee Atheists. The Lord is with them. God bless.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Jesus. That was very kind of you. We love it when you drop by and tell us those kind words. Really, we don't know how we do it without you, man. Our Redeemer, I suppose. You help out, Jesus. Thanks, buddy. So we have, you know what kind of sucks? It seems that once again, Jesus has taken Reuben. Look at this. Look at this, all this nothing over here.
I see it.
That is so sad. I already miss Reuben.
How are we going to read without him?
We're not. But what I can do is introduce the chapter that we'll be getting into, chapter 50. And here's just a quick thing from, chapter 50. Quick thing from Erdman's commentary.
Lo, I hath returned.
Oh, you're back.
I have been given secrets.
Given secrets? Okay, well, you know what? Hold on to those secrets for just a little bit. I got
hold on to
right
them
here.
forever. They're secrets.
Yeah. So for Isaiah 50, 54 through 6 or 4 through 9 is the third servant song, different from the others insofar as the servant is not named, but assumed to be the speaker. He has been inspired by the Lord to speak, but the word translated sustain is obscure, and so the purpose of his inspiration is unknown. And we'll get into some other translation stuff later. There's going to be way more, as there always is.
Wonderful.
especially from Hermenia.
Well, I'm happy to see that I'm finally getting
A short one, yeah.
short one.
Short chapter for you.
Relatively short.
I'm happy to hear
Yeah,
those
yeah.
exist.
Then again, yeah, given the amount of commentary we have to go through, we've done an hour and 15 minutes for 2 chapters.
Yeah, you know what?
It'll happen.
It'll happen, yep. Thus saith the Lord, where's the bill of your mother's divorcement, whom I have put away? Or which of my creditors is it to whom I have sold you? Behold!
Behold!
For your iniquities have ye sold yourselves, and for your transgressions is your mother put away.
Yeah, so
This is very Job-like.
yeah, it definitely is. So that was that was all of verse 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the trope of the people of Israel as God's bride is now extended to the alienation of Israel from God, which is represented as a divorce.
So
the wife
it's
has
like
been-
a divorce from Israel as the bride and a selling of the children into slavery, right? Because where is the bill of your mother's divorcement, which I put away, or which of my creditors is it to whom I have sold you? Right.
Well, so it says from Hermenia, Isaiah 51 concludes the poem the poem to 49:14 through 52:10. After the chorus and Zion have gone off, the stage is empty. There really is, quote, no human being there anymore when the servant comes in, that is, enters the stage. He is now the main character until Jerusalem stands up in 51:17. So he's kind of taken it apart that way, which is a really strange way to do the commentary, I think, but okay.
Yeah.
To continue on Alter's note, however, the wife has been sent away, the technical verb used for divorcing a woman, but she has misbehaved implicitly because she has betrayed Yahweh with other lovers, other gods. As the metaphor is developed, we see that she has been not only divorced, but sold into slavery, a condition that jibes with that of the subjugated exiles. Alter
That's a
used
70s
jibes.
word. Jibes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Footloose and fancy free.
Oh, yes, yes.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I
apparently-
wonder how wisdom feels about this Zion lady.
Oh, that's a good question. How would wisdom feel about all this? So many commentators find themselves at a loss with the beginning of verse 2. So go ahead and start verse 2.
Okay. Wherefore, when I came, was there no man? When I called, was there none to answer? In my hand is my hand shortened at all, that it cannot redeem? Or have I no power to deliver? Behold,
Behold!
Oh,
at my rebuke I dry up the sea. I make the rivers a wilderness. Their fish stinketh, because there's no water, and dieth for thirst.
Stinketh. So out of context, it may appear unseemly that God should boast of his divine powers. Not really.
Yeah.
Seems perfectly normal. In the present context, the point is that Israel somehow has failed to take note of God's all-powerful nature. So yeah, that's why the whole drying up of the sea thing comes in. One of the things about verse 2 here, many commentators find themselves at a loss with the beginning of it. Why did I come in and no human being is there? If indeed they grapple with the difficulty of these sentences at all.
I think it's pretty straightforward. It's a rhetorical question, right? He's saying, well, why is it that before I was here there were no people? Huh? It's because I made them.
Okay, yeah. So if indeed, yeah, okay. So who is coming where? Why is he alone? Okay, so apparently it's just not clear enough that they're going for. I see what you're getting at, though, Ruben. Wow, this is quite. I don't know if this is a fortunate name or not. F. Delich, kind of looks like Delish. Makes an interesting suggestion when he links Yahweh's coming out with the coming of Yahweh's servant. Yahweh's coming with the coming of Yahweh's servant. The relationship between Yahweh and the servant here and in the following text requires closer clarification, however. It is one of the passages in which I believe that to define the whole as a liturgical drama can be helpful for an understanding of the text. Here, too, there is a striking similarity to the mystery plays. Okay, so that's why he broke it up in the way previously.
Yes. I clothe the heavens with blackness, and I make sackcloth for their covering. The Lord God hath given me the tongue of the learned, that I should know how to speak a word in season to him that is weary. He wakeneth morning by morning, he wakeneth mine ear to hear as the learned.
Yeah, so that I may hear like the disciples or the scholars.
So he was given intelligence.
Now, the term disciple or scholar is not common in the Old Testament. In 54:13, the term is evidently picked up again. There, Zion, or Jerusalem's children or descendants, are supposed to become once more pupils taught by Yahweh. Isaiah 8:16 suggests that there was a pupil-teacher relationship in the framework of the prophetic instruction. And on the basis of what has already been said, the servant's position and function permit a comparison with the prophetic office, which, if you remember some of the wisdom literature, it was being addressed to, from a father to a son, even if it wasn't actually.
Right.
Yeah, that was Proverbs. Yeah.
Right. The Lord God hath opened mine ear, and I was not rebellious, neither turned away back. I gave my back to the smiters, and my cheeks to them that plucked off the hair. I hid not my face from shame and spitting.
So this is like a turn the other cheek kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, he's like, I turned my back to smiters, and my cheeks to them that plucked off the hair, right? So he's just not engaging with them. For the Lord God will help me, therefore shall I not be confounded. Therefore have I set my face like a flint.
So there is actually some...
and I know that I shall not be ashamed.
So just to cover the section we just read beforehand, my back I give to the floggers, and my cheeks to those who plucked my beard. My face I did not hide from abasement and spite. From abasement and spittle.
So he's like, I openly welcome people attacking me.
Yeah, there's a long tradition of Christian interpretation that refers this entire verse to Christ, which makes perfect sense. What the prophet is speaking about is his own experience, while most of his prophetic message has been a discourse of consolation. It is easy enough to imagine that his soaring vision of a splendid restoration to Zion would have been seen by many in his audiences as an outrageous pipe dream, an insult to their continuing plight as exiles, and some would have responded by mocking, insulting, even roughing up the prophet as he tried to address them. Yeah. That's the commentary there. I think there's probably some more. I'll check into that, but you can go ahead and continue.
Okay. He is near that justifieth me. Who will contend with me? Let us stand together. Who is mine adversary? Let him come near to me. Behold!
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 The Lord God will help me. Who is he that shall condemn me? Lo, they all shall wax old as a garment. The moth shall eat them up. Who is among you that feareth the Lord, that obeyeth the voice of the servant, that walketh in darkness and hath no light? Let him trust in the name of the Lord, and stay upon his God. Behold!
Behold! Lots of beholds today.
Yeah.
Yeah, like crazy amount.
All ye that kindle a fire, that compass yourselves about with sparks, walk in the light of your fire, and in the sparks that ye have kindled. This shall ye have of mine hand. Ye shall lie down in sorrow. That's the end of the chapter.
Yeah, and I don't really think that there is anything super special to talk about here,
No.
honestly. Although once again, Westerman seems to switch around some of the verses to have them make more sense.
Mm-hmm. So this next chapter that we're about to read, unless you want to continue commenting on it.
No, I was just I was looking through some other stuff there, but I think we can. Yeah, I'll hand it off to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
This next chapter, 51, is a series of short pieces.
Yeah, and this is the one that has that is kind of split up differently in Westerman's. So he has 51:1a, and then 50 verse 10, and then 50:11, and then 51:4, and then 51:5, 51:6, and then 51:7a, 51:1a, 51:2, 51:7b, and 51:8. So he switches it up quite a bit.
Okay.
So just keep that in mind when you're looking at his version. If you're looking for a commentary, how he divides that up.
All right. I'll pay attention to that. But looking at this interpretation in Eerdmans, it says the chapter is a series of short pieces. 1 through 2 shows the growing importance of Abraham at this period. His journey in faith from Mesopotamia to Canaan is offered to the exiles as an example, as is his childless state. The covenant with David becomes the covenant with Abraham. The Targum of Isaiah finds Abraham in all these passages where modern commentators find Cyrus. This is the only reference to Sarah outside of Genesis.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's impressive.
51:3 is a fragment about the transformation of Zion. She'll be like Eden. 51:4 through 5 and 7 through 8 could well be the servant speaking again, teaching justice to go forth from him. There's mention of the coastlands again. The servant is the one who brings salvation and deliverance, or is he? If the servant was originally the royal high priest who was the Lord with his people, who was the Lord with his people, rather, and he sat on the throne of the Lord in the temple, 1 Chronicles 29:20 and verse 23, then the ambiguity of verses 6 through 7 is explicable. 51:9 through 11 recall an ancient creation myth in which the dragon, who is the primeval waters, was defeated so that order could be created. In the Babylonian New Year festival, the story of Marduk's triumph over Tiamat, the sea was reenacted, she was defeated, and her split carcass was used to form heaven and earth. The lesser gods then built Marduk a temple in gratitude.
Yeah, and there's quite a lot of commentary here on those verses especially.
Yes, and 51:12 through 16 is disordered, but the sense is clear. Those who know the power of the Lord, the Creator, have no need to fear oppressors. The victims will neither die nor go hungry, but they can be confident because they are the Lord's people. And then there's more bits about the personification of Zion.
Sure. All right, here's you have those commentaries. I'll hand you this last one.
That was everything in Eerdmans.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get that out of the way.
Gotcha. Goodbye, Eerdmans.
For today.
For now.
Yep.
Here's this one. All right. So verse chapter 51. That is what we are on now.
So
go ahead.
editors are all aware of the difficulties in the verses that come between the servant's song in 54 through 9 and 51:9 FF, which is a unit with the clear marks of Deutero-Isaiah upon it. In the case of the first two Ebed passages, 42:1 through 4 and 49:1 through 6, we found that the verses which followed them presented difficulties. We discovered the following schema. The servant song is followed by an addition that is clearly related to it, and the addition is followed by a hymn of praise. A similar addition is to be found here, either 50:10F or along with it parts of 51:1 through 8 as well. But there's no hymn of praise to round it off. However, 51:3 has a substantiation in the perfect tense, which forms the second part of these hymns. And it's possible that they've gone along with 51:1F originally. It's a unit itself, and therefore best taken as a fragment of a hymn of praise, which followed the Ebed song and the addition to it. This does not clear up the difficulties, however.
Yeah, so maybe it might help a little bit. So I know that the Hermenia one, the very beginning of the commentary on this section, should clear up a little bit of stuff just to make it easier to follow.
Yeah, so the Hermenia says, the commentaries are largely at one in seeing this as a difficult text. There is a whole series of disputed questions. Who is speaking? To whom? When? What about? In my view, the difficulty is due to the fact that the text itself is speculative. It contains a kind of revelation speech, and it has a wide horizon. Remembrance of the Exodus tradition, evoked through the catchwords rock and spring, reaches forward to the traditions about the patriarchs and matriarchs by way of the names of Abraham and Sarah, and the text finally looks forward to Zion. The primeval period, Eden in Yahweh's garden, is linked with the future. It's clear that Zion in all these traditions will find their goal. With regard to the question who is speaking, the context deserves more attention than it generally receives, for the text is preceded in 54 through 11 by one of the servant of God texts, and it is by no means certain that someone different is speaking in 51:1 through 2. According to our previous assumptions, listen to me in 52 is pronounced by the servant of God, Moses, after his appearance. He shows how tradition should be applied to the present. He expounds his Torah. So he's still Moses, only the addressees are different. Thus, this is a new scene.
Yeah, because you gotta remember that was his interpretation was the whole Moses.
So there
thing.
are a lot of different interpretations.
Yeah, and
so.
and the thing is, this is something I might love to do some work on myself. Because if you don't know me very well, you wouldn't know that I love revelatory literature.
Yeah.
Yeah, Revelation is a lot of fun to read, a lot of fun to examine. This is good stuff. I loved making the videos on Revelation, and I did the Heavenly Horseman stuff and the Forged Fiction episode on it. It was a lot of good fun. Love that kind of stuff. So who knows?
Yeah.
Might include this. So anyways, yes, chapter 51, the final chapter for the day. Listen to me, you who pursue righteousness, you who seek the Lord. Look at the rock from which you were inhewn, and to the quarry from which you were dug. So they're talking. They are the rocks, basically.
Yes, although rock, tsur, in biblical poetry is often an epithet for God. The reference to Abraham and Sarah in the next verse suggests that the poet has in mind here the human forefather and foremother of the people of Israel. Quarry is never an epithet for God, and the fact that a rock juts up and is a masculine Hebrew noun, while a quarry is a cavity into the ground and a feminine Hebrew noun, further aligns the two metaphors with Abraham and Sarah, respectively.
See, I feel like that. I don't know if it does. I get where he's coming from, but I also feel like that's a little bit of a stretch because, okay, so just because they are of that, just because the nouns are of that gender, doesn't mean that's what the author had in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Those they were already gendered before the author wrote them down. So, yeah, it's not really necessary. Anyways.
Well, there's also 50:10, which, the presentation's all like that here. Who among you fears Yahweh, listens to the voice of his servant, he who walks in darkness and has no light. So it looks like that was put there in these edits because of its parallel with those who seek Yahweh. So it's those who fear Yahweh going into those who seek Yahweh.
Sure. That does make sense. But I'm just talking specifically about the any sexual reference that they were trying to make there. with the rock and the quarry. That's what I was talking about with being a stretch.
The sexual reference is a stretch.
Yeah. All right. Anyways. Look to Abraham your father and to Sarah who bore you, for he was but one when I called him, that I might bless him and multiply him. For the Lord comforts Zion. He comforts all her waste places, and makes her wilderness like Eden, her desert like the garden of the Lord. Joy and gladness will be found in her, thanksgiving and the voice of song. And I want to point out that this kind of theology did continue well into, even well after Christianity, because the whole new heaven thing, new heaven and new earth, and that's described, at the end of Revelation. That's so that kind of stuff is continued. That theology is continued.
Yeah, that's all common stuff.
Give attention to me, my people.
So hold on a sec.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're going into a new section here.
Yes.
Verses 4 through 8 constitute a unit linked by way of the catchwords law, salvation, help, justice, and the common theme. The double demand, listen carefully to me and listen to me, in verses 4 and 7, divides the unit into two subsections. The unit as a whole should probably be understood primarily as a divine speech. The self-declarations, my salvation, my justice, my arms, are so weighty that we can hardly suppose that Moses is the speaker, as he is in both the preceding and succeeding texts. At the same time, the connection with those texts is close. For example, in the reference to my law, which occurs in verse 7 and verse 4, verse 5b corresponds almost word for word with the first servant of God text in 42:4. The law, the Torah of Moses, is identical with the law of God. What is now said is a direct divine revelation that lends the text particular weight. Its subject is knowledge of God, the world, and human existence. What is presented here is nothing less than a total worldview. For whom is this teaching meant? Apart for the content, which is bound to awaken the interest of the people addressed, the introductory formulas in verse 4 and 7 give the first indication. According to the text of verse 4, attention is demanded of my people, and my nation is told to listen. Even the ancient versions felt obliged to make a whole series of textual alterations to the text here. 12 Hebrew manuscripts and the Peshitta change both substantives into the plural, peoples and nations, so that they agree with the plural form of the verbs. Wow. This means that it's a universal proclamation addressed directly to the empires of the world.
That would make no sense. Because, well, not no sense, but like we just talked about the other empires of the world, right?
Right.
So now it's time for specifically the ones who pursue righteousness.
Yeah, but there's more.
And also when it comes to Abraham and Sarah, specifically the Jews is who they're talking about.
Right.
So, because
Abraham's first son with Hagar was decided. No, that doesn't count. And his other children with his third wife also
doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
Although I do want to point out here, I don't know what I'm sure there's like a logical name for this. Like how certain arguments have like the framework, I guess, is that the word I'm looking for? Like a disjunctive syllogism and like other stuff like that. Like what?
Like rules of replacement and inference?
Like shit like that. Like I don't know what the name of it is, but like
a proof?
It would be a proof, sure, but that's a little vague, I guess. So this one from here, listen to me, you who pursue righteousness, and then describes them as, the father being Sarah and Sarah being the mother. So by some rule,
the father being Abraham.
Sorry,
Sarah being
you're right. I am dumb. Abraham, your father, and Sarah who bore you. So by some rule, and I don't know what that rule is, what it's called, the Jews are the only ones who seek righteousness. You know what I'm saying, though. But I don't know what the name for that is.
You deduced it either way.
Well, yeah, but I'm almost positive there's a name for it.
Right. So in the first verse, it says, "Listen to me, pursuers of justice. Look at the rock you were hewn from, Abraham your father and Sarah who spawned you."
Yeah.
So it is a syllogism of some sort.
Okay.
Right, because you're saying you have pieces A, B, and C. Right. Where you're saying, well, these people are the pursuers of justice. The pursuers of justice were spawned from Abraham and Sarah. Therefore, the descendants of Abraham and Sarah are pursuers of justice.
Okay.
Well, that's kind of tautological.
Yeah, it is.
Too. Right.
But either way, whatever the name of that is, just pointing that out there. Let's continue. So yeah, verse 4. Give attention to me, my people, and give ear to me, my nation. For a law will go... Okay,
hold on.
Go ahead.
I was still talking about who these people are.
My bad.
But it's possible with Schurz to argue in favor of a construction that follows the sense, not the grammatical rules. It's the individuals constituting people and nation who are being addressed. The striking series of first-person singular suffixes, my, in the whole text include the effect of the I sound at the end of Hebrew words, also speaks against the change to the plural. Another solution, already suggested by the Septuagint, leaves my people in the singular, but changes nation to the plural, nations. Then my people is addressed to Israel, the nations meaning everyone else. The stumbling block is that otherwise nation with the first person suffix never means Israel. The present text is undoubtedly the more difficult reading. To change it would also spoil the fine chiasm of the introduction of verse 4, but perhaps the stumbling block is intentional in the sense that people belonging to different peoples and nations are all addressed as my people and my nation. They're belonging to Yahweh, for the text goes on immediately afterward to talk positively about the islands too, and in verse 7, people is also singular. The second summons to listeners is in verse 7. It can also help to identify the people addressed. They are those that know salvation/justice. This takes up and modifies the identification sign already given in 51:1. Both have to do with salvation/justice. In 51:1, it was pilgrims who pursue salvation/justice. Now it is others. They know salvation or justice. According to the dramatic context in verse 5, they have been able to see salvation and justice. At the same time, they are those who know in the fullest sense of the term to know. As in verse 1, the parallelismus memborum gives a further clue to an identification of the group. They are the people who have my law in their hearts. If they have it in their inmost being, they have no need to show it outwardly. In the following passage, the difficulties these people have with the world around them is also immediately mentioned. The conclusion could be that here a group of sympathizers from other peoples and nations are being addressed, like the pilgrims in the preceding passage. They come from far off, at least from the standpoint of Jerusalem. The kind of knowledge that is communicated to this group could also suggest that they are interested strangers. So there's all sorts of ideas as to who could be the referent here. But
I still think it would just be the Jews, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's the Jews.
Like, I think it would make more sense if it was the Jews initially, and then maybe there was an addition to the chapter that addressed the other nations in like a better light, and then a scribe would have changed the stuff about the nations, or sorry, the stuff about. Yeah, he would have made it more of a universal thing. That's what I'm going on, but that's completely tentative. I could be completely wrong. But let's continue here. So yeah, verse 4, give attention to me, my people, and give ear to me, my nation. For a law will go out from me, and I will set my justice for a light to the peoples. My righteousness draws near. My salvation has gone out, and my arms will judge the peoples. The coastlands hope for me, and for my arm they wait.
So in an instant my triumph draws near, my rescue comes forth, and my arm shall rule over peoples. The coastland shall wait for me, and count on my strong arm.
Oh, okay.
So he says, Alter says, in an instant. This phrase reflects in Hebrew. This phrase reflects in English the Hebrew verb argia, which can mean to do something instantly. In the Masoretic text, this verb appears at the end of the previous verse, but it almost certainly serves here as a part of the sequence of two successive verbs. The first, in effect, adverbially modifying the second. That is, argia akriv. I will do in an instant. I will draw near. My arm shall rule over peoples. The arm in biblical idiom is repeatedly a metaphor for power. Although the use of the plural here is unusual, the Hebrew here uses a plural, but the translation avoids arms in order to not suggest the sense of weapons. At the end of this verse, arm occurs in the singular, and the translation is added strong in order to convey the idiomatic sense of the Hebrew.
All right, this small section is just one more verse here, and then there's plenty left in the chapter, but just a small section. Lift up your eyes to the heavens and look at the earth beneath, for the heavens vanish like smoke. The earth will wear out like a garment, and they who dwell in it will die in like manner. But my salvation will be forever, and my righteousness will never be dismayed.
So when it says
even
will die in like matter, it says, and its dwellers like gnats die out. Like gnats, the Hebrew kemoken appears to say also thus, a dubious phrase before die out, and after two strong similes, like smoke, like a garment, in the two preceding verses. This translation assumes a scribal error for kemokenim, like gnats.
So, they're gonna fade away. But the message behind here is that even stuff that seems forever is nothing in comparison to how long God's righteousness and salvation will last. All right, continuing on. Listen to me, you who know righteousness, the people in whose heart is my law. That's the Jews. Fear not the reproach of man, nor be dismayed at their revilings. For the moth will eat them up like a garment, and the worm will eat them like wood. But my righteousness will be forever, and my salvation to all generations. So kind of the same thing from before.
Yeah. And
actually, it seems like all the other verses in this chapter just condensed into two.
Yeah.
Honestly.
So this seeing of a mystery is followed by instruction of the knowers.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to me, you who know salvation. This is the way wisdom can speak, or in the later Gnostic texts, Sophia. In the correspondence between the heavenly and the earthly sphere, four concepts are picked out once more: salvation, law, justice, and help.
Mm-hmm.
Yahweh's arms remain in the heavenly sphere. According to the rule that like can only be known by like, the Torah is both in heaven and in the hearts of those who belong to God's people.
Yeah. Awake, awake! Put on strength, O arm of the Lord. Awake as in days of old, the generations of long ago. Was it not you who cut Rahab in pieces, who pierced the dragon? And that's a reference to Canaanite stuff.
Yeah, it says, was it not you who picked apart Rahab, who pierced the beast of the sea?
Yeah.
This verse ostensibly continues the archaic creation story.
Yeah.
And the sea could be understood as Yam, one of the names of the beasts of the sea.
Yam was the sea god.
Mm-hmm. The impression is reinforced by the use of the great deep, a designation that refers to the primordial abyss. But in the next line of poetry, that creation myth merges, in an effect like a cinematic faux record, with the drying up of the sea of reeds, who turn the sea's depths into a road that were deemed to go over. So, yeah, that would be Tiamat, right? Who's the beast of the sea.
Yeah, pretty sure.
Right, and in the story, Marduk captures Tiamat in a net and then kills her.
As you do. Was it not you who dried up the sea, the waters of the great deep, who made the depths of the sea a way for the redeemed to pass over? And the ransomed of the Lord shall return and come to Zion with singing. Everlasting joy shall be upon their heads. They shall obtain gladness and joy, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away.
So verses 9 through 11 constitute a separate scene. Catchwords and themes link it, no doubt, designedly with the scene immediately before and with the one that follows. But this is no longer a divine speech, as are 4 through 8 and again verse 12. But then who's speaking? It's Moses who has reappeared. He calls on Yahweh on behalf of the new Exodus. A close examination suggests that here too the Moses of Deuteronomy is meant. For as
Are we talking about the verses 12 and on, or what we just read?
No, 9 through 11.
Huh, okay.
For as J.J. Stam pointed out, as an innovation, Deuteronomy applied the verb PDH, ransom or liberate, to liberation from Egypt. The present text has to do with the Exodus, and according to verse 11, with the ransomed and liberated people. Another striking point is the meaning of Yahweh's arm in Deuteronomy. In the formula with a strong arm, with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, according to Vanderwood, this usage is limited to Deuteronomy and the literature influenced by Deuteronomy, and always refers to the divine act of redemption in the Exodus, the bringing out from Egypt. Here, however, this Moses interprets Scripture afresh when in the text, creation, the miracle at the Red Sea, and liberation are linked in a new way. To whom is this teaching directed? To the redeemed, the freed, who are now described more precisely as Yahweh's ransomed ones. Legally, when a slave was redeemed in the ancient world, ownership was symbolically transferred to the deity. The names of redeemed slaves were therefore written on altars, for example. A ransom had to be paid for the manumission. But if the ransomed of Yahweh, the former slaves, return to Zion, this means that a third group of people from far afield is being addressed, following the pilgrims and the sympathizers. The text attacks the problems of this group too in a fundamental theological disposition. So, I mean, that's section.
I am he who comforts you. Who are you that you are afraid of man who dies? Of the Son of Man who is made like grass, and have forgotten the Lord your Maker, who stretched out the heavens and laid the foundation of the earth. And you fear continually all the day because of the wrath of the oppressor, when he sets himself to destroy. And where is the wrath of the oppressor? So we've covered the whole stretching out of the heavens, laying the foundations of the earth, kind of from the very close to the very far, all that kind of stuff. Universally,
Yeah.
this is what it's going after there. So, just more of that stuff. And Son of Man, let's just remember, that just means human. That just means person, son of Adam.
Mm-hmm.
So that is just what that means. It's not, it did obviously become as, it obviously was about Jesus later in the New Testament, but Son of Man just means human.
Right.
All right, let's continue here.
So these verses 12 through 16 are a challenge. For as C. North writes about these verses, compared with the rest of Deutero-Isaiah, they're jumpy and inconsequent. He maintains, thinking not least about the revelation of this text in the servant songs. All things considered, 12 through 16 is the Achilles heel of the theory that Deutero-Isaiah wrote and edited a book to which no subsequent additions were made.
Ah, okay.
Contrary to this view, I should like to put forward the following hypothesis. The rapid change in the person addressed is connected with the dramatic structure of the text, and this text is an important element in the presentation of the servant of God, Moses. This is a transitional passage. It takes up what has gone before, while with verse 12, as we shall see, it points to what is to come. The repeated change of speaker and addressees are a noticeable feature. Yahweh's name is pronounced 3 times, once in verse 13, twice in verse 15. Verse 13 names in third person, 15a is first person declaration, and 15b is again third person. Verse 12 begins with the plural form of address, but everything else is the singular. Masculine forms are generally used for the addressees, but in 51:12 we find the feminine. We shall try to discover the reason for the rapid alteration.
He goes into his argument for that.
Yeah, he goes into his argument, which takes many pages.
Yeah. All right. Let's continue here. I just finished verse 13. So verse 14. He who is bowed down shall speedily be released. He shall not die and go down to the pit, neither shall his bread be lacking.
So the translation,
so it's about Sheol.
Who crouches shall quickly be freed.
So if you, I'm guessing, if they became subservient, then they wouldn't have to. They wouldn't die. That's for sure.
Yeah. Apparently, this whole verse is somewhat conjectural.
Yeah.
The meaning
the
meaning of the first verb is doubtful. So
okay, fair enough. So although you said that verse 16 was the one that is kind of the nail in the coffin for the for a Trito Isaiah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're almost there. I am the Lord your God who stirs up the sea so that its waves roar. The Lord of hosts is his name. Okay, so is that what the seas are roaring?
That's
are
verse
they
15 and
I know. It is verse 15. I said we're almost there.
Yeah, that is what the sea is roaring.
Okay. And this is verse 16. And I have put my words in your mouth and covered you in the shadow of my hand, establishing the heavens and laying the foundations of the earth, and saying to Zion, you are my people.
So establishing the heavens. Alter says stretching out the heavens. The received text shows lintoa, to plant. But
yes.
This is surely a mistake for lintod, to stretch out. So verse 16 here. God's address to the servant of God. I put my words in your mouth. God can do this when he authorizes a human being and equips him as prophet.
Yeah, that does. And even when he didn't equip somebody as a prophet, when somebody was just like a prophet by occupation, like I forget which king this was, but he put words into their prophets' mouths.
Yeah. All right. In Deuteronomy 18:18, the prophetic office is derived from Moses in almost the same words. I will raise up for them a prophet like you from among their own people, and I will put, literally give, my words in his mouth. At the same time, the text demonstrates Moses' unique position, the incomparability of which is established at the end of Deuteronomy after Moses' death. Never since then has arisen a prophet in Israel like Moses, whom Yahweh knew face to face. It is precisely this unique position that the present text asserts.
I see what he's going for. Okay.
But it's remarkable that this comment should be among Deuteronomy's final words and therefore belong to the conclusion of Moses' Torah. Some commentators are bothered because the sentence, in the shadows of my hand I have hidden you, appears almost word for word in 49:2.
Yeah.
Although the phrase in the shadow of his or my hand never occurs anywhere else, But we should note that the statement is made by the servant of God about himself in 49:2 and belongs to the second servant of God text, when it is reiterated here as a divine utterance and a promise that establishes a link, making clear that here too is the servant of God who is being talked about. The whole passage, right to the end, acquires its significance if Yahweh is presented as speaking to Moses. That can be made clear through a paraphrase. That God put his words in Moses' mouth is familiar enough, where the laws are concerned. But here the statement applies to the whole of Moses' Torah. Yet how could Moses talk about the creation of heaven and earth when he was not there? Isaiah answers this by saying that Moses was hidden and kept safe in the shadow of God's hand. This means that his pre-existence was a conceivable idea. As a prophet, Moses is, in this respect, unique. With this utterance, the text looks back at the beginning of things, but Moses also looks forward, away from his own time, into the future. Though, I'm going to say that I find this Moses connection to be kind of spurious.
Yeah.
Like, sure, there are similar linguistic markers, but there's nothing in, like, the flow of the text or, like, how the story has been going.
Like, I mean, I get, where they're coming from with, like, law and stuff, so I get the importance of law, and I also get the importance of the textual links between this stuff, but yeah, to be identified with that instead of being identified with a mosaic figure is, that would be a different thing.
I guess the Sabaoth part of the name is part of why it gets related to Moses.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. I don't think that was one of his arguments. That's just another title. But anyways, so I'm going to continue here. Wake yourself, stand up, O Jerusalem.
So this text is the antitype to a Dionysian scene, drunk but not with wine, which we see in verse 21. Jerusalem experiences its most profound humiliation, and yet at the same time, the turn of its fortunes. So
wake me up inside.
Yeah. There's an argument that gets built up through the text, but they basically just restate it. So go ahead and read it. But tell me when you finish verse 17.
Okay. You who have drunk from the hand of the Lord, the cup of his wrath, who have drunk to the dregs, the bowl, the cup of staggering. So that is the end of verse 17. But it's like
that's different. You have drunk from the hand of the Lord, the cup of his wrath, the chalice of poison. You drank to the dregs. And this chalice of poison, the usual translation of the term tarelia is reeling or staggering, but it's more plausibly related to ra'al, which definitely means poison in post-biblical Hebrew, as it may also do in Zechariah 12:2. This understanding is supported by the fact that the word for wrath and the cup of his wrath also means venom. The Hebrew for chalice is two words, literally, the cup of the chalice, and some think cup is a gloss on the rare word for chalice, kuba'at, but joining two synonyms in a construct form is elsewhere a means to intensify or heighten the sense of the noun, and that may be the case here.
But yeah, it's, talking specifically about the people who have, who have felt the Lord's wrath. Yeah. Very, very basically.
All right.
There is none to guide her among all the sons she has borne. There is none to take her by the hand among all the sons she has brought up. So yeah, this seems like a very different tone to be taken than the stuff before.
Yeah. The text contains an interpretation. As Doom already observed, verse 18 is not smoothly welded into the context.
Yeah.
But in Deutero-Isaiah, Zion/Jerusalem's sons undoubtedly have their place. The text is criticizing the sons who have not helped their mother in her degradation.
I see, okay. These two things have happened to you. Who will console you? Devastation and destruction, famine and sword. Who will comfort you? And those are, among, I pointed this out in the Heavenly Horseman video, but those are among some of the great devastations, I would say, the great curses. I know that the word devastation is being used here. But yeah, famine and sword, destruction. Yeah, big stuff that's just used throughout the text.
So famine and sword are hardships included in curse lists.
Yeah, exactly.
We can see Isaiah's tendency toward abstraction when he adds to this pair devastation and collapse.
Yeah.
What's NAH? Nah 3:7.
Oh, that's Nahum.
Nahum.
Yeah.
Nahum 3:7. In Nahum 3:7, to say that no one bemoans and comforts is a way of making Nineveh's downfall clear. What's striking in Isaiah's this point is that the future tense of the verbs lament and comfort are used. It is as if this utterance originally belonged to a prophecy of disaster, not to the description of the time of distress that's now past. In context, these are all declarations that also have a place in the popular lament.
Yeah. Who will comfort you? Your sons have fainted. They lie at the end of every street, like an antelope in a net.
The identity of the beast is uncertain.
Okay, fair enough. They are full of the wrath of the Lord, the rebuke of your God. So yeah, they're I guess helpless. They can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Therefore, hear this, you who are afflicted, who are drunk, but not with wine. Thus says the Lord your God. Or thus says the Lord. Thus says your Lord, the Lord. That's what it says. Okay. Your God, who pleads the cause of his people.
The basis is a statement of faith. That it again, if it's again true, there's hope that Yahweh will plead the cause of his people, in the sense of fighting a case on their behalf.
Okay, well, we can only hope. Behold!
Behold!
I have taken from your hand the cup of staggering, the bowl of my wrath you shall drink no more.
So this is again the cup of poison, the
Yes.
chalice of my wrath. In an elegant reversal of terms, cup is now linked with poison, and chalice is with wrath, whereas in verse 17 it's the other way around.
I see, okay. I don't really see the elegance in that, I guess, but
So elegant.
I get it.
So elegant.
I can see it with my eyes. Either way, he's taken away all those hardships, or we'll sure hope so. And I will put it into the hand of your tormentors, who have said to you, bow down that we may pass over. And you have made your back like the ground and like the street for them to pass over. So yeah, you're just letting them walk all over you.
Yeah.
Let's stop that. None of that anymore.
So
You're going to walk all over them. That's what you're going to do.
So in verse 21, the speaker completely reverses the judgment passed on what has been seen. Jerusalem is a poor woman, and her drunkenness is not due to wine. Verse 22 then introduces the divine speech in solemn form. The turning point is already indicated in an extraordinarily subtle but precise way before Yahweh himself speaks when he is announced as your Lord. The marriage tie with Jerusalem has been restored. Jerusalem has been accepted once more. Jerusalem's God is the very one who intervenes on behalf of his people in their right. Here, too, the connected with the preceding text, 51:16, is maintained. Again, the cup of staggering is shown before it passes on to the tormentors. The reproach leveled against them is their subjugation of Jerusalem. As illustration, attention is frequently drawn to pictures in which kings tread on the back of their subjugated enemies. There could conceivably be a military connotation if the phrase is rendered like a road for them to walk on. The only curious point is that Jerusalem herself is active, not just the tormentors. The sentence can also be translated, you make your back like the land as it is outside, for those who walk on it. If this is not just interpreted in a metaphorical sense, it could be describing the open, unwalled city. But the walls, in the splendid form given to them, are the theme of 54:11 through 14. There, in verse 11, as in here, 51:21 and 51:19, the poor and the one who is not comforted are addressed. It may therefore be that catchwords for what is about to come are already given here in chapter 51. It is worth noting that there could hence also be references to the contemporary situation, the building of the walls under Nehemiah.
Huh. I mean, a little bit, I guess. Yeah. Potentially, I'm not sure on that. But either way, that's the end of the reading for the day. We hope you all enjoyed the show. And if you haven't yet, drop a like and subscribe if you haven't.
Share it with your friends, family, neighbors, countrymen, etc. And you know what? If you want to support the show, we've got a 666 drive going on right now. Once we hit $666 in donations, we'll be getting ourselves a thetan meter. We'll see who the most clear is. We'll talk to you about
our friend
Scientology.
Right here, our friend Ball.
Yeah.
He requires tithes. Give him the money, not to us. Give him the money.
Yes, pay sacrifice to Baal.
Yes.
But
he needs it to help him destroy Scientology.
In addition to that, if you'd like to support the show, you can check us out on Patreon.
Yes. Well, we got a lot of cool stuff on Patreon. We gave away a shirt today.
You saw the t-shirt giveaway at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, so that could be you.
There's also patron
That should
hangouts.
be you. Why aren't you there?
Yeah,
There's
that
only
should
2
be
people
you.
there.
Yeah. There's also patron hangouts. There's also you could be on this show with us once a month. And, there's all sorts of cool stuff. Get all our scripts, get books that we write and self-publish. It's good stuff. There's also an Amazon wish list, which has tons of books like these, which you can add to the table so that our show can get even longer than the 2 hours that it took us to read 4 chapters of the Bible.
But you know what? We had a lot of commentary.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we got lots of stuff on Isaiah, so makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of stuff on our wish list. Upcoming books that we're going to be reading, commentaries for those books.
Yeah, we got
videos
Tobit right there.
Yeah, we got Tobit right here. We got some stuff coming up with any videos that we're making. We always require commentaries.
We got the Quran video coming out soon.
Yeah.
And did you do the grammatical fix?
No, I'll do that.
Okay, once you do the grammatical fix, it'll be up on Patreon. You can read why would you read the script? It's way too long. But you can if you want to.
Yeah, it'll be up there before the video. Yeah. So lots of exciting things coming up. Also, yes, for Patreon. Once we hit $200 a month, we'll be starting production on The High Place. That is our dramedy. It's going to have God and Jesus and some other characters that you all know and love. So I think it's going to be really good. We got a nice story.
It's Dia de los Muertos today.
Is it?
But it's also All Saints Day. So this is both our All Saints Day special and our Day of the Dead special.
Super special.
Amazing. So aside from that, I guess Teespring too. If you don't want to take your chances with not winning a shirt,
you
go to the
get
Teespring.
yourself a Behold shirt.
Odds are good you'll win one though.
Yep.
Yeah,
odds are pretty good.
Yeah. If and you know what? If you want even better odds, you can just buy one. 100% chance you'll win the one that you buy.
With the number of shirts that Landon's won, you would think that statistically speaking, it would be less and less likely each time.
You'd think.
But no, he keeps
just
winning.
It's going to be Landon at some point, and we'll spin it, and it'll be, wow, it's Landon. Big picture of his name.
It's just Landon. We won't have to spin it. But either
we'll
way.
We'll have like hundreds of people, and it'll still always land on Landon.
Crazy stuff. Either way, thanks everyone for joining us.
Yes, and we will see you on Friday/Sunday.
Also Sunday. We'll see you next week.